Hey everybody, JD here, and I am in my little tackle shed here looking to see if I have any gear that would be able to handle a 500-pound salmon. A 500-pound salmon, what? So we're going to do a little thing I like to call the fishing boat time machine, and this is where I think about things I would love to go see and do before, humans came and messed things up. The number one thing on my list would be to go back to the West Coast, Central Oregon, Southern Washington, Northern California, and fish for the Sabertooth Salmon. Now these guys had huge fangs on them, hence the name, and they grew to 7 or 8 feet in length and weighed 100, 200, 300, all the way up to 500 pounds and more. How could you not want to go do that? So, without further ado, let's hop on the fishing boat time. Okay, our journey begins in Central Oregon along what is now known as the Deschutes River. And that's where paleobiologists discovered fossil evidence, and this is going back several decades, but they discovered fossil evidence of a massive salmon with giant teeth. Now, just how big were these things? How about maybe up to 500 plus pounds and 7 to 8 feet, maybe longer? I mean, just let that soak in for a second. A 500-pound, 8-foot-long salmon. I'm totally in, and that's why I would like to have this fishing boat time machine. Wish it was real. Anyway, initially scientists thought that these big fangs on these fish were like saber-toothed tiger fangs, pointing downward. But recently found fossils paint a different picture, and they've found some more complete skulls and heads of these things, and some of the heads on these things are like 20 plus inches long, just the skull. And so anyway, these more recent discoveries have shown that the teeth are more, they point outward on the top of the snout, more like, I guess you'd say, a warthog or something, rather than downward like a saber-tooth. And I'll post some of the articles below in the description here. You can read some more on this thing. It's pretty interesting. Anyway, these tusks that these things had were probably bigger than a human thumb, and you just look down at your thumb and take a look at that, and you go, man, that's a big set of chompers. Anyway, all this new evidence has prompted the curators at the University of Oregon's Museum of Natural and Cultural History to have to take down this life-size replica they have there, and it's pretty cool. If you want to go check out what this thing looked like as far as size-wise in person, they have a display there at the U of O. And anyway, the initial replica they made had fangs pointing downward, and then after they found all this new info out, they had to do a little dental work on this thing and give him some new teeth. Anyway, here's a picture of the guy getting his teeth cut off. So now, what's interesting is you'd think this thing was just a crazy apex predator, but actually scientists think that the saber-toothed salmon was actually a plankton feeder, and they base that on some of the gill rakers they found on these fossils. When the gill rakers are very close together, which indicates a filter feeder, and so they think this fish was probably a relative of the modern day sockeye salmon, and not an apex predator, which is interesting. And so why do they have these big teeth? Well, these big fangs, or tusks, if you will. Well, they think that probably the males used them during spawning season to fight with other males, and then maybe the females actually used them to dig redds in the gravel nests. So anyway, there's a formidable set of chompers for whatever the reason they are. So now, can you imagine, let's just think about fishing for a second here. Can you imagine dropping through a riffle like in your drift boat into a hole, and all of a sudden there's 300 pounders rolling and splashing around you? A fresh pot of chromer just came in on the tide, and you got fish the size of calves or donkeys or something rolling around in the hole. I mean, talk about giving you the jitters. And so many things come to mind. I mean, first you think about what kind of tackle you'd need for these things. And it'd have to be like tuna rods, right? Huge reels, huge rods. And then what do you use for them? Well, of course, these guys were plankton feeders, much like sockeye, which don't bite very well in freshwater, as we all know. But let's just assume they were biters. I mean, a fish that big's got to bite, right? So you'd have to bust out the brand new stainless steel T700 flatfish with the titanium 20x strong hooks, right? And then, of course, you'd need a wire leader, right? And oh my God, think about the takedown from a 300-pounder, 400-pounder, 500-pounder. I mean, just insane. What would jacks be? The jacks would probably be like, oh, I don't know, 70-pounders or something. I mean, yeah, my head just spins. And oh God, okay, you hook one of these things and you actually get it tired out and to the boat. How do you land it? Seriously. I mean, what do? You're not going to net it, especially, I mean, nobody has a net that big. Plus, the size of the fangs, I mean, you're going to go right through the net. So, I mean, a gaff, a harpoon, I don't know. And then you think about what you do with a fish if you kept one. It's not like you can have like a modern day guide boat with 6 guys on it. You're going to keep 2 fish apiece. You sink the boat, right? So maybe the limit is 1 fish per boat per day. But then it's not going to fit in a cooler in a drift boat. It's not going to fit in a fish bag on a jet sled. I mean, I'm not sure what you would do with one of these things. And then, of course, at the end of the day, you get there, and what kind of knife? Are you using a samurai sword, a chainsaw? I mean, I'm not sure how you would fillet one of these things. It's just, maybe it's just got to be a catch and release deal. But oh man, my mind just gets all spun up thinking about fishing for these things. I mean, wouldn't it be so awesome to fish for these? And then think about, they just thought of another thing. So you're bank fishing, and you know these things are swimming by. You got to have Kevlar waders, right? And then you think about, you'd be able to tell a veteran Sabertooth salmon fisherman, because he or she would have gouges, just big chunks of flesh gouged out by those fangs. You know, their legs, their arms, their hands, probably missing some digits on the hand. I mean, wow. I just get fired up thinking about these things. So, man, it'd be awesome to go hop in the old time travel machine and go back and catch some of these. But anyway, okay, well, that ought to get your juices flowing. And time to take us back to our own time. So, kind of sad, I know. So join me again soon for another ride on the Fishing Boat Time.